Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse, and in this recording I'm going to be exploring the astrology of December 2025. So as we come into this month, I still can't believe it's actually the end of the year, but anyway, as we come into this month, maybe the disbelief is Neptune hanging out on that anaretic degree. It kind of feels a little like that right now. I'm recording this in the middle of November. And so this feeling of, I just can't believe what I'm seeing. I don't know what's going on. That's very Neptune anaretic in Pisces on that 29th degree of Pisces. And Neptune is actually going to station this month as well. So that's coming in. The tide is beginning to turn. The other ruler of Pisces, Jupiter, is also going to make another connection with Chiron, so that's also a big story. Mars is changing signs. We have two planets going out of bounds. And we're also coming to the next turn in the wheel of the year as we move into the next season. So as we come into the month, on the 4th of December, we will have the full moon in Gemini. That will be at 13 degrees and 3 minutes of the sign Gemini, which will put it pretty much exactly square to the nodal axis. Basically, the sun will perfect its square to the north and south nodes on the 5th of December, so just the following day. And when the sun is square to the nodes, it often can correspond to heightened activity on the planet. Sometimes this can be a time of natural disasters or natural events, big natural events, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, these kinds of things. And sometimes it's less about what's going on with Mother Nature and more about what's going on with us, and that there can be a lot of tension because something somewhere is pushing us past this sticking point. And the sticking point here seems to be connected with communications, international communications, general communications. There's something going on with the stories that we're hearing and the way that we're communicating with one another. If it were going to be a natural event, I probably would think wind because Gemini is an air sign, but I am mindful that Neptune is hanging out on that final degree of Pisces, Neptune, the ruler of the oceans. So there is quite a lot of tension around this period. We also do have Mars moving into a square with Saturn. It's going to connect with Chiron as well. That's more of a flowing trine. That's on the 5th of December. But Mars is marching towards a square with Saturn in Pisces. So Mars is up there in Sagittarius. Saturn, of course, is finishing its job in Pisces. Mars square to Saturn can feel like there is some fight against rules, regulations, or authorities. And Mars in Sagittarius can be filled with conviction that this is the right way. There's a righteousness, there's a crusading that comes from Sagittarius because Sagittarius is often bound up with the things that we believe. And so we are acting on, or we are on a mission to prove our beliefs, to fight for our beliefs, but something or someone is in the way with the square to Saturn, and we can end up kind of butting heads with other people and feeling very frustrated that we can't get this goal done, that we can't get to where we want to be, that there is some kind of block in the road, especially thinking about Sagittarius as a sign associated with traveling. So we can't get to where we want to be and we're enormously frustrated. Chiron is whispering in the background that it's okay because it's giving us some time to heal what needs to be healed, and it's giving us some time to bring together other ideas or to find a way to deal with this frustration, to find a way to calm this anger that we feel. But it's not easy. So just to be mindful that this is happening. Look to where Mars is traveling in your own chart. That's the area of life that might be giving some frustration. And you just want things to move more quickly here. But patience will pay off. Patience is always the way with Mars. And on the 10th of December, Neptune stations direct. So again, this is occurring on that anaretic degree, the final 29th degree of Pisces. It is the last degree of the zodiac. We are finishing up a huge cycle here. The last time when Neptune was in these degrees in history was back in the 1860s. So it's a long period of time that is now coming to a close. And for all of us, we are being asked to address where perhaps we are misleading ourselves or where we're trying to escape or avoid. So looking at where Neptune is, where this 29th degree is in your own chart, which house is it in, this area of life is where we're all susceptible to a little bit of delusion or self-deception just because we don't really want to see what's happening here. And yet underneath everything is this beautiful soul song of Neptune that's saying, if you surrender to what you know to be the truth here, if you just go with the flow, listen to your heart, listen to what your soul is saying, then you will know what to do. Then you will understand the meaning of this. Then you will feel the peace that Neptune offers. So surrendering and going with the flow doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean despair or, falling into despair. It doesn't mean sticking our heads in the sand. It's about listening and making meaning from the experience that we're going through. So Neptune is offering us peace here. Neptune spiritualizes what it touches. So whatever area of life is being affected here, what can you do to transcend? How could you see it more in a spiritual light? What lessons might you be learning here? If your guardian angel was sat in front of you, what do you think they might be saying to you about this area of your life? These are some of the things that are going to be coming through as Neptune begins its long, slow march towards Aries. It enters Aries on the 26th of January 2026. So we just have a month and a half to go now of Neptune in Pisces to receive these final messages and to find the peace that Neptune is offering us. Mercury enters Sagittarius on the 11th of December. I'm noting this because, of course, we had Mercury going retrograde last month. It began that retrograde in Sagittarius. So we're still covering some old ground. We're coming back to where we were at the beginning of November. And by the 17th of December, Mercury will be out of the shadow zone. Generally speaking, when Mercury goes into Sagittarius, then again, this speaks of communications, international communications. It speaks of how we are thinking about things in the long term. This is a visionary sign. And it's also talking about our beliefs and our ethics, morality. What framework do we use to judge the world, to understand the world? Mercury in Sagittarius wants to learn, but the trouble is that Mercury is actually in its detriment in this sign because it rules the opposite sign, Gemini. So it's not overly happy in this sign because we can get very scattered. Mercury doesn't like to close down options. It likes to have all options open, all roads open, all possibilities open. Imagine if you wanted to go on a day trip. So you hop in the car with your little picnic pack and you get halfway down the road and you're at the crossroads. Now, which way do you go? The problem is that Mercury doesn't want to not go down any road. So it's really difficult to decide because you want to keep all of those different experiences open to you. And so choosing one over another can actually be quite hard when you have Mercury in Sagittarius. That can go for the natal position of Mercury in Sagittarius as well. So making choices is difficult because there's a whole world of experiences to enjoy, but positively, it does make us want to learn. It does make us more interested in hearing different people's experiences. Mercury in Sagittarius is very good for learning languages. So it is the time to do some big thinking, for sure. It is time to get in touch with the bigger picture. You can see that there's already a lot of activity in Sagittarius because we've got Venus, the Sun, Juno, and Mars is still here as well, although it's preparing to move into Capricorn soon. But when Mercury moves into Sagittarius, there's already a lot of emphasis on this sign. So we are searching for truth. And so this is the time to ask some big questions about what we believe and where we're going. On the 14th of December, though, Mars will form a square to Neptune. So basically, Mars is activating Neptune. So if you're having a major Neptune transit to one of your planets or angles, then this square from Mars will bring it to life. Now, this is a challenging aspect, not least because both Mars and Neptune are on these anaretic degrees. And Mars in Sagittarius, earlier I was saying about how this placement can speak of crusading. And if there was ever a crusading aspect, then Mars anaretic in Sagittarius would be it, especially with Neptune. Neptune can speak of God, deity, spirit. It is the unknown, the transcendence that we are looking for, the paradise. And here Mars is fast and furious. It's a wildfire in Sagittarius. So we have almost like a zealot energy with Mars square to Neptune. Generally speaking, Mars square to Neptune can manifest as our actions getting deflected. Energy is deflected. It's like a gunshot, when somebody shoots a gun and somehow it hits the wrong person. It doesn't hit the intended target. It hits somewhere else. That's Mars square to Neptune. So we can act on Mars, what we believe Neptune is the right thing to do, but in fact, it's the wrong thing to do. It's not actually our intuition. We've been fooled into thinking a certain way, or we didn't see things clearly before. Again, Neptune has that kind of foggy sort of influence. Now, positively, if we're in touch with our intuition, this is an aspect we can describe as the spiritual Neptune warrior, Mars. So we're acting on our intuition. We're being guided on a spiritual mission. So we are filled with courage because of what we believe in. But sometimes you can see how that can end up being very messy if we're filled with this zeal because of what we believe in. And maybe what we believe in isn't actually the right thing, or it's misguided. So Mars square to Neptune is a little messy. And just to remember that Mars is still in a square with Saturn as well, because Saturn and Neptune are now in a conjunction with one another. So that is also adding this frustration. So we have this feeling that we want to do something. Mars takes action. We want to do something, complete the mission, get the goal, fight for whatever we think is right. But someone is telling us no, or someone is saying slow down, someone is putting a block in the way. And then Neptune is coming in with this sense of, well, who is it that's actually trying to undermine me? And so we might be getting frustrated, feeling like someone or something is undermining us. But that might not be the case. It might just be the wrong time, Saturn. And Spirit is trying to give us a little different direction. So the square is, we would like you to do something different than what you're thinking. So it is a little messy. So therefore, it's going to be better to wait until Mars goes into Capricorn before taking any kind of action. Maybe give Mars a few days to get away from these squares to Neptune and Saturn. But once Mars goes into Capricorn, 15th of December, Mars is then in the sign it's exalted in. Mars loves to be in Capricorn because Capricorn is formal and it's structure, and it's like the sergeant major of the signs that gives soldier Mars his orders. And so there is a sense that we can get a lot done when Mars is in Capricorn. It's a sign of the realist. It's about manifesting. It's about making things happen. It's about achieving. And so we can see how this blends beautifully with Martian energy. That sense that we can pour all our efforts into this piece of work or into our business or into our career, into the thing that we're trying to build for ourselves. We can pour all that energy in, we can commit to that, and that will actually give us something tangible at the end to appreciate. Now, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, so I think we should mention Saturnalia. It begins on the 17th of December. This is the old Roman festival to celebrate Saturn, and I like to acknowledge Saturn during this time because I'm actually a big fan of Saturn. I know he gets a bad rap. Popular astrology, it's like, oh, Saturn is depressing and he makes us work really hard. But I love Saturn for those reasons and many more. So Saturnalia is where we get some of the roots of our modern Christmas practices. So, for example, greenery was brought into the home and people would give gifts to one another. But the interesting thing with this festival that I really like is that people would swap positions. Everything was turned on its head. Men dressed as women, servants and masters would swap places. And a quote, so I've got this from Wikipedia, but is that it was seen as a time of liberty for both slaves and freedmen alike. And that caught my attention because, don't forget, Saturn is also the co-ruler of Aquarius. We often forget that. We think of Uranus and its quirkiness and technology and the weird and the wacky with Aquarius. And yet Saturn is also the co-ruler of this sign. And so, we do have to sometimes work for our freedom, and we do have to have some kind of containment or rules to be free, otherwise it would just be complete chaos. But Saturn kind of welcomes chaos in these days because sometimes we need to experience that to push ourselves right out of our comfort zone to see the other side. And that is what can make us more human, more humane. Humanity works better, functions better when we understand how other people experience life. And that was the point of the slaves and the freedmen swapping places, the men and the women, the servants and the masters, the king and the fool. They would swap places, sure, yes, to give each other a giggle, but at the same time, it would give them the experience of what it's like to be in that person's shoes. So the festival runs from the 17th of December for 7 days. So that takes us up to the 24th of December, just before Christmas. On the 20th of December, though, there will be a new moon in Sagittarius. It's going to be at 28 degrees and 24 minutes of that sign. And that will put it in a conjunction with the galactic center. So that's going to be quite a potent lunation as well. I will be talking at length about this in the recording. I do a recording for my patrons and my Substack members on the lunations. There's also a weekly forecast as well. So if you do want to deep dive into these stories and so hear about the asteroids that are connected to the lunations as well, then do check out my Patreon or Substack, whichever you might prefer. The links are below. So a pretty dynamic new start. Any new moon is a new start in the sign of Sagittarius. Then we're looking at some kind of new belief, some new quest, new destination. There is a sense of a new vision coming in with this lunation, which is going to be informed by this galactic center. So it kind of feels big. It feels very, very spiritual. Now, on the 21st of December, I'm just going to mention that Venus is going to go out of bounds. So very basically, from planet Earth's perspective, the sun moves along a very specific path, and the planets tend to wander around this path as well. They follow the same kind of path, but sometimes they wander a little further and they go off the path. A little like little Red Riding Hood goes off into the forest and goes off exploring. And yes, sometimes you might find a wolf when you go off the path. And so this is the planets when they go out of bounds. They're no longer on the same path, which might mean they discover something really amazing, or we might find the proverbial wolf. The planets are working in ways that are a little bit unexpected. There's sometimes a Uranian quality to out of bounds planets. And Venus, when she goes out of bounds, it's affecting our relationships, the things that we like and dislike. So it's almost like going to extremes, and we might feel that our relationships are in kind of no man's land territory when Venus is out of bounds. This will be just a short period of time from the 21st of December through to January the 3rd, 2026. Now, also on this date, magnifying this story, in fact, because Venus is in Sagittarius, Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is going to square Chiron. So this is actually the second square. We've already had one, which was on the 23rd of October. And then the last one will be on the 2nd of July, 2026. So we've got a way to go yet before we complete this story. So Jupiter square to Chiron, a square is tense. It pushes us to take action because we feel uncomfortable. That's any square. Squares are difficult because we have to do something to resolve the tension. But when we do something to resolve the tension, then that can leave us in a much stronger position because we've actually tackled the problem. So Jupiter square to Chiron tells us that we want to develop, we want to be closer to our family, we want a better home, we want a better domestic life. We want some kind of growth here. Wherever Jupiter is moving in our own charts, we want some growth here. We want developments. We want opportunities. We want the lucky breaks. We want all the things that Jupiter brings. We want the joy and the happiness. And this is the deep need. Cancer is about our emotions. So we're actually growing a better understanding of our feelings in this area of life as well. But all of that is challenging our healing process, because to be able to develop, to take up opportunities, to buy a bigger home, to have a family, or whatever it is Jupiter is asking us to do and saying this is going to be great, Chiron is perhaps making us flinch because we don't think we're strong enough. We don't think that we can, or we're not independent enough, or we don't feel motivated enough. We don't feel confident. We don't feel assertive. We don't feel we have the energy. We simply don't feel strong enough. We feel too hurt. We're afraid of other people rejecting us. So this is a dynamic that's going on, is tapping into all the wounds. For life to get better, sometimes we have to push ourselves to get stronger, to get strong enough to be able to have the benefits of a better life, to be able to access the benefits of growth. So there is a big opportunity for healing. That's the crux of it. There's a big opportunity for healing here, but we've got to believe Jupiter. We've got to have faith in ourselves, have faith in the universe, have faith in life, so that we can push past this fear of getting it wrong or fear of failing. On the 21st of December, the sun enters Capricorn, which means it's the beginning of astronomical winter in the northern hemisphere. So here we are at the turning of the wheel of the year. It is Yule, the winter solstice in the pagan calendar. I love this time of year, and I love the winter solstice as well, because after this date, the light will begin to return. This is the shortest day of the year. It's also very special to me because my grandmother got married at the winter solstice because my granddad wanted to have the longest night with her, which I always think is the most beautiful romantic gesture. So I really like this festival. So solstice is all about the return of the light. We light a candle in the home, on the altar, on the windowsill. We bring back the light, and we can cultivate the light within around this festival as well. Now the sun going into Capricorn, it just takes us into Capricorn season. And Capricorn is a sign that can be associated sometimes with bearing hardship. Of course, here in the northern hemisphere, this is a time of cold and dark days and frost and sometimes snow. And so dealing with the hardships that nature and life can bring is the sun in Capricorn. But it's also a sign that shows us through life's tests and trials, it gives us resilience. So Capricorn is associated with being really committed and responsible and time conscious. And, this is doing the job that you need to do to make sure there's food on the table for your kids. It can actually be associated with parenting as well. So when the sun goes into Capricorn, although we're kind of at Christmas time and festive season, there's also a lot of emphasis on these responsibilities of life as well. But remember, again, it is Saturnalia. So we're actually seeing the other side of Capricorn. If you are a Capricorn sun or Capricorn rising, there's often a phrase that you get younger as you get older. So you're born with an old head on young shoulders, but as you grow older, you sort of grow into your youthfulness. And so the flip side of Capricorn is actually quite fun. If you think of Capricorn, it's symbolized by the sea goat. So you have this creature that has a kind of mermaid tail, but the top part is a goat. And if you ever watch young kids, baby goats, playing in their pen, then that will show you the fun side of Capricorn. They're incredibly playful. Venus enters Capricorn on the 24th of December. She's still out of bounds, but now she's kind of got a little bit of boundaries with Capricorn. So it's actually going to be testing our boundaries, which is kind of interesting while she's out of bounds. So Venus in Capricorn normally is about commitment. So maybe perhaps we have to really explore some extreme kind of alternatives before we commit, or to be able to commit. We've got to do some roaming. We've got to try to see things from a really different perspective. But generally with Venus in Capricorn, it always asks us questions about, do I want to commit here? Do I want to invest time, money, energy, love? How much do I want to invest in this part of my life? And then on the 28th of December, Mercury will go out of bounds as well. So that is going to be until the 15th of January. So now we have Mercury out of bounds and Venus out of bounds for a few more days as well. So the mind is roaming some territory here, going into some places it hasn't been to before. We're really thinking outside of the box with Mercury out of bounds, but sometimes communications can be a little bit strange because we're communicating in ways that aren't expected. Sometimes news comes out of the blue with Mercury out of bounds. On the 29th of December, Juno will enter Capricorn as well. So now you can see there's a really big build-up in Capricorn. Juno, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Astrea, Vesta, all of them in Capricorn. So you can anticipate your Capricorn house is going to have extra emphasis during this time. whilst all this planetary action is occurring here. Juno is also associated with relationships, so it's kind of interesting with Venus here as well. So Juno is typically thought of as the marriage asteroid, but she's also just generally about commitments and agreements. And here we've got that emphasis with Capricorn on formal commitment, formal agreements. Am I going to sign on the dotted line here? Am I going to really put my name to this? This feels important. With Juno being in Capricorn, she says the way to commit to things is to have a plan. It's to have some kind of order, structure, because without that, it feels a little woolly for Juno. So some kind of formalization of commitments of all different kinds is possible whilst Juno goes through Capricorn. And the last aspect for the year is Mars on the 30th of December, forming a sextile to the North Node. So Mars is still in Capricorn, the North Node is still in Pisces. To me, this says that if we are willing to do the work, Mars in Capricorn, then we will get a sign. Then we will be able to open the doors. Then we will be able to find our way. It's just about sustaining the efforts. In other words, this is a keep going. Keep going with what you're doing. Keep your motivation up. Remind yourself that sometimes the reward for efforts come later down the line, which is very Venus in Capricorn as well. Delayed gratification is common with Venus in Capricorn. But Mars sextile to the North Node just gives us a little hint that we're on the right path. So keep going. This concludes my reading for December 2025. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please do click a like and subscribe. It always helps the algorithm. Leave a comment if you would like as well. It's always nice to hear from you all. Now, I am going to be doing a video for 2026 covering the year ahead, so that will be up soon as well. So do check back for that, or of course, if you have the notification bell clicked, then you will get notified when that video goes up. If you would like to hear more from me, I mentioned earlier, I have a Substack website, Patreon, all the things, social media. I post daily on Facebook and Instagram, and also I have a Cosmic Tides daily posts website as well. So I'm in all different places. All the links are below. I will see you again soon. And in the meantime, I wish you many blessings on your path.